Hello, welcome to a new video. Welcome if you're new, welcome back. If you're not new and you're subscribed, thank you. I did a sew with me video during our Vlogmas series where I sewed a pair of bright pink linen pants and it did quite well and people seem to enjoy it. I've been getting really into the sewing memade community these holidays, so I wanted to do another sew with me before I get busy with uni. I'm going to be sewing two patterns today and they are both free patterns that you can get online. These have been produced by In the Folds for Peppermint magazine, which I think is so cool. I think they're doing amazing things at Peppermint magazine to get people back into sewing or into sewing for the first time. I think it's so awesome, and there's a whole community of sewing on Instagram that I'm just like loving and feeling so inspired by at the moment. I think I'm gonna do memade May, where you wear all of the clothes you've sewn for a month and document it. See how that goes. I might be a bit busy. But today I wanted to try them out for the first time because I've never used these patterns before. If you've never used like an online pattern that you buy in a PDF, you can sometimes get them printed at like a print shop, but I'm too poor for that. So I'm printing them at home on my A4 printer. You basically print out a whole lot of A4 pages and then cut them out and stick them together. Here's the first tip of the day. You only have to cut out two sides of your paper. I spent so long cutting out all four sides of the first pattern I did, so you can kind of like cut two and then layer them on top. As long as you cut the same two each time, that saved a lot of time. But it is quite a time-consuming process printing and connecting them all together. So the two patterns I'm doing are the springtime short and the play suit, which it turns out didn't have enough fabric to do the full play suit, so I'm turning it into a top. Probably will make the full play suit at another date when I can afford to buy fabric, but at the moment I'm using up some fabric in my stash. So I've got this gorgeous red linen that I used from one of my uni assignments and had like a little bit left. Sometimes it can get quite expensive sewing with by the time you buy the pattern and the fabric if you're buying good quality fabric, and yeah, so super student budget, gotta keep the costs down. So I printed it out, put it all together, which I'm gonna say is very difficult in a studio apartment because I do not have much more space for laying out all the pieces of paper, so I kind of had to do it in like sections that fit on my floor. Once it's all stuck together, and I just use little bits of tape kind of near the edges of where all the corners connect on the pattern pieces. Once that's done, you can cut out your pattern. So all the different lines are different sizes, so to figure out what size you are, you take your measurements. So I just measured like waist, hips, bust, and figured out which size was closest to fitting me, which was E, which was this little line here. So then I cut out all around it and I had my pattern pieces. The next step is to lay it on your fabric, and these patterns do come with little guides for laying out your patterns on your fabric so that they all line up on the straight grain. So you want to measure that the straight grain parallel to the edge of the fabric. If you don't do this, your fabric can go all kind of wonky. If you've ever had a top that kind of like keeps twisting, that means they haven't cut it out on the straight grain. It's definitely worth taking the time to line it up on the straight grain, I promise. Once it's straight, pin it all up, cut it all out, and that's where I'm up to right now. So I'm gonna start sewing. Here are my pieces ready and cut out. So as you can see, the pattern piece goes all the way down there, but my piece is this long because that was all the fabric I had. So for this step, it is important to make sure you're not pulling the fabric as you put it through the sewing machine. The point of stay stitching is so that it doesn't stretch out. So I'm just gonna really gently let it feed through the sewing machine, because even if your fabric doesn't have any stretch in it as such, there will be some stretch. It's like, especially on the bias, which is a 45-degree angle, you do get a bit of stretch on the fabric just by the way it's made. So doing the stay stitching helps it not stretch out, stay the shape you want it. So I'm just holding it like very lightly, mostly letting itself just feed through. Because I'm making a top, I'm not putting a zipper in like in the instructions, so I can actually skip so many steps. I also don't have to do the pockets, so I'm already up to side seams. I have sewn my straight seam and I've done a little zigzag stitch. It's still gonna fray a little bit, but it's gonna stop it from fraying mostly. Side seam done. Just sewn that seam there. I almost sewed this the wrong way, so I had almost had two pieces that looked like this. It's always a good thing to check. Now I'm gonna press the seam. It says to press it open, but I overlocked mine closed. It's fine, I'm not using a thick fabric. This seam iron it so it's kind of pointing towards the back. So start on this side where the seam allowance is, and then I'm going to flip it over and iron it on this side and make sure this seam gets really nice and opened up and beautiful and flat, because that's going to make it look like really good quality. So instead of pressing them then sewing it like this, so now I'm going to turn them through and give them an iron. I do have a little tool for pulling things through, but it just got really fiddly, so I got lazy. First step, cut off the corner so that when it pushes through there's not a whole lot of excess fabric. Alright, now this is a chopstick. I'm going to start turning it in the right way from the end, and then I'm gonna stick the chopstick in there and help push it through, but careful not to make a hole in the end. And then I'm gonna use that to pull it through, so the end will come through nearly there. There it is. And when the end's out, you can kind of pull it and it will turn the right way. And that was so much faster than my little tool. The focus on this camera is so annoying. But I'm just rolling it like this so that the seam comes out. I'm gonna iron it instead of having it like this little flappy bit. I'm gonna roll it between my fingers so then it looks nice and straight. Okay, the straps are done, but I think I'm gonna take a break and have some lunch, because another of Tara's sewing tips: if you are hungry or really tired, you're going to make more mistakes and the sewing's not going to go as easily, so it's always good to take a break. Somehow before lunch I missed the instructions about doing the central seams, so I've done that and now it looks more like a top. They're pretty much the same as the side seams, so looks like that now. It looks okay, I was gonna say it looks really big, but now that I've held it up against myself, it's not that big. The next step is to attach the straps. So I'm gonna pin them into position. They are pinned into place, and I'm going to sew them with a 6cm seam allowance. So I still have the facings to do. I've just attached the straps, but I wanted to try it on and get an idea of the fit and see whether I wanted to take in anything. I think I'll make it a bit shorter in the end, maybe even like slightly cropped. We'll see once the facing's on. I probably could take it in like a little bit at the sides if I wanted it to be more fitted, but since it doesn't have any stretch, I kind of like it like that. I don't think I'm going to take it in anywhere. I think I'm just going to put the facing on. I looked up the instructions for the facing and it's pretty much the same as the main body. I'm going to stay stitch around the edge and then sew the side seams. Since I'm not doing a zip, I can sew both sides, and yeah, let's do that. So my facing is sewn together, and I've also pressed these seams nice and flat, so they're looking beautiful and like professional. It's always good to do this as you go, because you're going to get a much nicer finish on your seams. So what I'm going to do now, since I've done that, I'm going to do my zigzag all around the edge to keep the inside of the facing in nice condition. And that means when I sew over it, the seam is already pressed how it's going to be. I'm not trying to like press it after I've sewn it and it's already kind of out of place. You've got to press. It's a really good tip. I feel like when I was younger, my mom would get annoyed because I didn't used to press things properly, or I'd be like, oh no, I can't be bothered, but honestly it makes such a difference, I promise. I feel like it would be really nice to do like a binding around this edge if you can afford binding, just to finish it a bit nicer than what I've done. The next step is to attach the facing. So close to being finished. So I'm gonna pin my facing around, and there's nice little notches all the way around that makes this really easy. So I'm just matching up the notches to the seam and pinning those and making sure they're in the right spot. Alrighty, so it's all pinned on there, ready to sew. That was pretty straightforward. So I've sewn a line. You can see how not completely straight my sewing is. of sewing a line, making sure that it's like on the other side of that stay stitch all the way around. So the next step is to flat stitch it to the seam allowance. So I'm going to flip this up and then sew the seam allowance to the facing, which is this side. It does say in the instructions it will be a little bit tricky to get into that kind of pointy corner where the strap is. Ooh. I feel like I sewed that corner wrong. And how it's meant to look, I don't think it is. Okay, I sewed the strap wrong because I didn't do the guide for the stitching, which they recommend doing. So I'm just gonna fix that strap now. I think that looks better. Okay, flat stitch time. But I couldn't get right into that corner very easily, so I just left it. I'll iron it nicely. The main part is that it will still hold most of the facing down to look all nice. It's looking like a legit top. Just gonna go iron that edge. It's looking so good ironed. Like, ooh, it's gonna be so cute. The final step for the facing is to secure it down to the seam allowance so it doesn't like flick up when you're wearing it. You can see there, put a little pin, and I'm just going to sew it to the seam allowance so that it doesn't show on the actual side of it. I just realized this whole time my camera's been on a super weird setting and that's why it's not focusing properly. That's so embarrassing. I call myself a YouTuber. What I was trying to say before my memory card ran out and I had this miraculous discovery was the reason I kind of feel its way down and holding the top is just so that I don't pull it down too far, so it like pulls on the top, and you don't want it too loose either, you want it just right. Let's sew these now. It's secured down now, so that's all attached down. I'm not going to have a flicking up facing, which is always good. I'm up to the last step, which is the hem. So I am going to, first of all, you can see how crooked I cut this. I just didn't cut it, I just left the edge of the fabric down there. So I think I'm going to cut it straight across and then try it on and see how I feel about the length, whether I want to take more off or it's okay like that. I just laid it out on the floor and I noticed there's a little bit of like a flick at this point, which is for the butt for going into the jumpsuit. So I think what I might do is just cut straight across just where it's starting to kind of flick out. Can you see that little ducktail? I think I'm going to cut straight across there. I should probably measure each side so I do it straight. The length is good. The length isn't too bad. It's sort of like a cropped-ish length, but there's still enough that I could tuck it in if I needed to. So I think I'm just going to hem it with a quick double turn hem and then it will be done. Okay, I tried it on without a t-shirt so you could see it properly. I do think it's still like a little bit gapey under this armpit. I think it would, if it had like a little dart, it would have just made it look that much better. Other than this little section here, I think it fits quite nicely. It was a nice little pattern. I was having a little pinch around of the excess fabric and I noticed that if I pinched out a little bit at the back, it made it sit better under the armholes. So instead of fiddling around with the armholes, I think I'm just going to take a big chunk out of the back section. This is the back seam and I think I'm just going to sew straight down there and see if that fits better. So hard to film myself. I think it fits a little better. It's still that darted area there. Like it needs a little dart, but can't be bothered doing it now. This is where I'm gonna leave the top. I was also going to sew the pair of shorts I got cut out, but I feel like that was a little bit ambitious for one day when I have a headache. But I think I'm gonna leave that for another day. So if you want me to film that one as well, please give the video a thumbs up and let me know down below. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos, especially if you want to see more sewing videos. But for now, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!